I just get really excited creating something. And both my parents were entrepreneurs. And when I went to the corporate world, I always felt like I was undercover for like, I'm going to learn processes and I'm going to learn how systems and organization, but I'm not going to be here forever. I just didn't know what that entrepreneurial thing was.
From the cubicle to the lab, the studio to the war room, climbing the corporate ladder, or joining a scrappy startup, experience a day in the life of the jobs you want. This is the Experience a Diddle podcast.
A diddle, spelled ADITL, stands for A Day in the Life, and that's exactly what we do. We interview professionals, entrepreneurs, and recent grads about what a day is actually like, hour by hour on the job. This podcast will inspire you to gain experience beyond the classroom and launch a career of your own.
We're your hosts, Krista Bowe
and Matt Poe. Welcome to part 2 in the 2-part Nurture Your Network series. In part 1, we went through hour by hour in a day in Emily's life as the founder of 6 Degree Society. In this episode, we'll take you through Emily's career journey so you know what skills and experience are necessary to start a business of your own. She had entrepreneurship ingrained in her DNA and had a knack for connecting people. But she needed some time to help build her own people collection, as she calls it. Her 6-month stint in Argentina and willingness to learn got her jobs in corporate fashion and eventually gave her the skills to start her own networking events business. Let's learn how she did it so you can too.
Emily attended Denison University, a small school in Ohio, for undergrad. There, she majored in Spanish and communications.
She chose communications because she thought she wanted to do marketing or PR, and this major was the closest thing to that. She chose Spanish because she always had the curiosity to travel, so much so that she did an exchange program in Costa Rica in high school and studied abroad in Spain. She loved learning about the history and traditions of different cultures.
The reason she chose Ohio was because she wanted to escape the tri-state area, and
I actually really wanted to be a big fish in a little pond. I thought there was something beautiful about getting to know everyone there. And I promise you, I'll probably run into someone from Denison today because it's such a small school, you recognize all of the faces when they cross paths with you.
And then I saw that you joined a sorority.
I did,
Delta.
Can I help you?
I wanted you to talk maybe a little reflection on your sorority experience. Were you like, I don't know, was it the best type of environment for networking and the mantra that you've curated at 6 Degree Society in hindsight?
I created the adult sorority that you'd want to be in, I want to say. Like, I created something where I liked being in a sorority, and I'm so grateful for the experience. I hated the rules of a sorority. And that's why I've never been attracted to like a junior league or one of those organizations that fines you if you don't come or to X amount of meetings or if you don't raise X amount of money. Like, I don't got time for that.
Right.
We don't all have time for that. So I liked the sorority for, it was cool, the traditions and whatnot. I thought the politics of it were kind of BS. But I also think it put so many barriers to other people because we still label the people by the association of the sorority or fraternity they were in and like put them in a box in a certain way. I didn't love that aspect of it.
Emily had a few internships throughout college as well. The summer of her sophomore year, she was a spot buying analyst intern, and the summer of her junior year, she was working at IMG Fashion. She got those internships through family connections, which is also the reason why she wanted to get opportunities on her own post-graduation. Here's what she was doing at her spot buying / media planning internship.
They have a budget every single year of, let's say, $1 million. And so our responsibility was to take that $1 million and to take the data of what we knew their customer was all about and figure out the best place to place ads.
And then she got an internship at IMG.
What my role was to compile lists of sponsors to reach out to sponsor New York Fashion Week. So I'd be like, hi, Frederick Fakai. Like, I'm Emily. Would you want to sponsor Fashion Week? I didn't know what I was doing. I don't think I closed any of those deals. I think I was better at researching and compiling things. And it's funny, like I really don't remember the day-to-day of working at that internship at all. But I do remember thinking like, ooh, sponsorship, that's an interesting idea. You're not paying for the event, but you're getting someone to pay for it for you. And that's, I think, like, again, another sprinkle into the future of my life of understanding that there's something that's being offered and something that's being provided, and it's a deal that happens where neither party should walk away feeling screwed.
Emily did not have a job lined up after graduation. Instead, she decided to take some time off as a reward for all the hard work and surviving 4 long Ohio winters.
I honestly had no qualms with taking the summer off, and I always tell people when they graduate, don't feel guilty to take a summer off because you have your whole life to work your ass off.
Totally.
And if that means taking a trip with friends, I love traveling, if you can sense this with me. But yeah, like, don't always feel like if you can afford it or you can figure out how to do it, like, do it and take that opportunity to travel, because there'll never be a good time for you to do it later on in life. I loved my time in Madrid and my Spanish major, and I had this huge fear of losing my Spanish. I was like, this would be so pathetic if I just graduate and then, like, I can barely communicate to anyone in Spanish. So I picked a country that I heard was a lot like Spain, very cosmopolitan, but at a price point of Mexico or a price point of Latin America. And so I had never been to Buenos Aires in Argentina before, but I just like set my mind on it that I'm going to move to Buenos Aires after I graduate college, because I thought, like, you need to keep challenging. And if you're comfortable, then you're not working hard enough. You need to always feel uncomfortable. So I kept saying it, and I told my mom, like, I'm going to move down there for like 3 months and teach English, and then I'll be back. And I just said it over and over and over. So I felt very confident senior year, where I didn't feel like I didn't have a plan. I was moving to Argentina.
That was your plan.
That was my plan. Like, I'm moving to Argentina. Do I have to tell you what I'm doing there? No. I'm moving to Argentina.
Isn't that enough?
Yeah, be happy for me. I'm moving. And that was actually a really cool experiment in life, because I had no freaking idea what I was doing. I thought I was going to teach English. And so I found a plan, or I found a course where you could learn how to get certified in TOEFL, like teaching English as a foreign language, and signed up for that, and then decided to live with a family, or a crazy lady and her dog and cat, and for 5 weeks. And that was like my start point.
Emily's in Argentina, living it up and itching to learn, when she met a woman named Maddie, who started BA Cultural Concierge, which was trip planning for American and English-speaking tourists coming to Argentina.
And I loved it. I loved what she was doing. So I just emailed her and said, I want to help you, or I want to work for you, but I don't want to be paid. I just want to learn from you. So, like, think of me as your right-hand lady and how I can help. And you can pay me in wine and like empanadas, and I'm cool. She took a risk on me, and she really gave me leeway to be creative and learn how to do everything. And then while I was there, again, I felt like I was a sponge in Argentina. It's now 6 months that I'm there, and I go to a wine tasting event, and I was so blown away by the presentation. I asked the guy, I was like, I want to learn more about wine. Do you ever need help or support? And he's like, absolutely, actually. And so I started learning about wine and being able to speak to wine and do presentations for tourists coming to America. I wanted to learn, and I'd ask. And I'm one of my advice that I always like to give is like, there's no harm in asking. No one's a mind reader. Mm-hmm. And if you don't ask, then how would you even know if you could have done it?
Do you think that you would have gone out and sought this experience if you didn't have the mindset that you were moving to another country? Was the fact that it was a foreign area like helped push you have that fire in your belly to seek out that experience?
I think so. I think for me, New York was I was too complacent in New York. Like, my network was too saturated. I knew everyone. I didn't know everyone, but I knew a lot of people. I could like lean on family more, being from the New York area. So there was this like personal challenge to establish a network. And I actually said these words, which is so nerdy, but like, I wanted to build a network from scratch. I didn't know anyone. I went down knowing no one. It's just so cool how if I hadn't had Argentina, I don't think I would be where I am now. So this is the coolest part. So I ended up staying 9 months. I had an Argentine boyfriend. I traveled around Argentina. But I was working my ass off when I was in Argentina because I was trying to just learn everything, while at the same time I felt this ticking time bomb inside of me where I was like, okay, at one point I need to go home and go back to the States and like start and launch my life. Because this was more kind of like the backstage warm up to my life. And so I met there was one particular night where my roommate, my friend Caroline, didn't want to go out with me. And I was always going to like expat parties. And I was like, come on, we have to go. And she's like, I am so networked out. Like, you always have to network. And I was like, you never know who you're going to meet. Yeah. And so I went and I like inserted myself into a group of strangers and introduced myself to this one woman who was just so fantastic. She had just moved there with her now husband, but it was her boyfriend back then. And I quit her job at Luna Bar. This is just like how ridiculous our life is.
You were just full of awesome connections.
It's just like insane how this... And I was like, what's
your
Luna
constellation
Bar?
map is like awesome.
Yeah, how the hell does this all happen? And I didn't know what Luna Bar was. And she worked in PR for Luna. And I was like, how cool would it be to be in PR? Like, I want to be in PR. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's do PR. And so I asked her if I could treat her to breakfast and have her take like a look at my resume and figure out how to make sense of what I've done in my experience to translate it back to America. And then I said, in exchange, besides buying you a delicious breakfast, I would love to help you get acclimated in Argentina. Like, I know everyone now and all the expat communities. And if you want a job here, I can help you find a job. I can help you find a hobby. Like, you pick my brain, I pick your brain. Cool. And so she was such a dear, and she sent out my resume to like probably at least 6 of her closest friends, and I heard nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I was like, well, thanks for the breakfast. I'm back in the States. I'm in the library in Connecticut, like trying to find a job, on Indeed.com. And a friend of mine sends me a job posting on Craigslist to be an assistant to a wine ambassador from Latin America. So I send him my resume, and he calls me 4 minutes later, and he's like, holy shit, you're exactly what I'm looking for. But it was really cool because I was able to take what I had learned in Argentina about wine and then kind of like spread the gospel about it in these conferences and conventions and fancy dinner parties. And he was adorable and funny, and I'm adorable and funny, You guys thought that was funny. That's good.
This job wasn't ideal financially, but she was networking like a fiend because of him. He met her friend group and vice versa. One Labor Day weekend, she was on her way to Nantucket with him when she got an unexpected phone call.
It was like 8:30 p.m. Friday, going to Nantucket from the South. And one of my friends from IMG, Meredith, is from the South. So I picked it up, and she goes, Emily. And I always say to Meredith. And I go, Meredith? And she goes, no, this is Laird. And I was like, lard? And she's like, Laird. I was like, liar. Like, I could not say Laird for the life of me. Like, my tongue just didn't know how to say it. And I was like, yeah? Who is this? And she's like, I got your resume from my friend Keely in Argentina. And are you still looking for a job? I'm next to my boss. I'm like, yes. Yes, I am. What's the job? What's going on? And she's like, I work at Ralph Lauren. I just started a role at Ralph Lauren, and we're looking for an assistant on the retail marketing team. Long story long, I ended up going in and interviewing and somehow convincing them that my experience in, fine luxury wine, Argentine things and trip planning and itinerary planning, all of those were very comparable to event planning for an in-store event. Retail marketing, after Googling, I found out it's like when you plan an in-store, how you market your retail stores. So for us, that was focused on events within the store.
So can you go into a little bit more about what your responsibilities were as the assistant and what you were doing?
God, did you ever see the movie The Devil Wears Prada?
Absolutely.
That's all her.
Okay, so I have like a visceral response when I watch that movie now.
Oh gosh, it was very similar.
It was very similar, and it was very and again, hindsight is 2020. Like, I feel like now I'd be like, why didn't I handle it like this? Or why didn't I do this? Okay, so I came from Argentina, where I came from the mindset, like, why do people even pay money for brands? Like, why do we need materialistic things? Like, I had lived in a country where if you were anything shiny, it probably got ripped off of you in some way. So I became pretty, salt of the earth type individual. And then here we are at one of the most like exclusive premier brands. And so it was interesting to learn how to adjust to that kind of lifestyle. But then also it was, oh God, yeah, the worst part. I was the one managing all of the RSVPs. So as RSVPs came in, people would call my line, leave a voicemail, or they would RSVP to the inbox. And then I would add it to the RSVP list. And then my boss would print it out and then look at it that night and then come back. And she would come back and she'd be like, are you dumb? Like, why do you have Mr. and Mrs. Barry Dillard, but then you have Diane von Furstenberg? And I was like, what
does that mean? Yeah.
Diane von Furstenberg's married to Barry Dillard. Why, you idiot? Like, why didn't you know that? So I just remember this night going home and being like, I'm a failure. I don't know. Like, I don't know this world. I don't know these people. And I was consolidating it incorrectly. And it was as if I would like botched a brain surgery, but it was organizing a list. Like, it's so dumb in hindsight.
Right.
So dumb. But what I really, really loved about working there was the tactical elements of planning an event. Like, the run of show template that my direct boss Laird created was so beautiful. I've like brought it across my entire, career path. And it was working with these vendors and like developing and nurturing these relationships with them. And then in addition to that, I was developing the relationships with the store teams. And then the store teams developed relationships with their customers and came up with events and pitched us on events. And then we would move forward with it, or we wouldn't, or we would have an idea and like do a bigger event. And I loved the cross-functional aspect of like working with the PR team to execute something. So it's funny. I was a temp, and I was only there for 4 months. So I started getting panicky and thinking like, I got to find a full-time job within this company before this happens. And so I started peeking around at Club Monaco, which happens to be owned by Ralph Lauren.
Yes.
And I applied for a marketing position over there. And I came in, and the HR person loved me. That she ended up poaching me for her own team. And she's like, no, you're not going to be in marketing. You're going to be in HR. It's like, cool, that's awesome. She gave me the offer. I felt like I didn't have a second to think about it. I didn't have a second to negotiate it. And it was essentially, I was an HR assistant / receptionist. She made it really glamorous for me. Like
office coordinator.
Office coordinator. Yes, basically.
She worked at Club Monaco for 9 months before she realized HR was not for her. She loved hearing people's stories, but she said she was starting to get frustrated because she wasn't working to her potential.
And I got a phone call from Laird, who hired me at Ralph Lauren, that she just got hired at Tory Burch. So lesson, maintain those relationships.
More people,
no matter what, maintain those relationships. And so then I went in and I interviewed with a woman named Jamie Pecanics, and I loved her and she loved me, and she's still one of my favorite people in the whole world. And then I interviewed with Laird's boss and then the CMO, and I got hired as the marketing assistant, and I started 2 weeks later. So I started at Tory, and it was amazing. And Tory was the best experience of my life, because when we started, it was year 7 of her brand. So it was still a startup. Mm-hmm. It was still something where we were throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what could stick. And what was really cool working with Laird, we knew how to work really well with one another, and we knew the systems that worked really well at Ralph Lauren. We were able to create the same guidelines and the same type of like elevation of a brand that at Tory. So we were able to create brand standards and guidelines, and then we would plan the events for all of the stores. Like the stores weren't able to go rogue and just plan an event, which is funny because now I work with stores rogue all the time. It's fantastic. And so for me, what was really beautiful about that experience was just being able to be creative and be able to have this responsibility to be in part of Tori's entourage, to be able to travel with her. I think it was 5 months in. No, maybe it was the next year, a year and 5 months in. I got to go to Hawaii and plan an event for the opening of their store.
Nice.
And it was so much fun. And the people I've met there are still my family. It's incredible. Like we're very connected.
She was promoted to marketing and special events associate after about 2 years as an assistant, but her responsibilities didn't really change much. After 2 more years in that role, Emily started to feel a little antsy.
Truth be told, at the end, I felt like everything was so routine and that we had done such a great job creating processes and like kind of simplifying every event and templatizing things that I just was bored out of my mind.
And that's when kind of 6 Degrees Society was just starting to come about, right?
That's when it was bubbling inside of me.
Tell us about where the seed was planted.
The seed was planted. It was this frustration where I think it was February and it was freezing in New York and I'm sitting at my desk and it's like, is this the end all be all? Do I have to be at a desk for the rest of my life? Do I have to be scared to go to the bathroom or like sneak out for lunch and always tell someone where I am? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I had this like itchy feeling in my belly where I just wasn't sure this was it. I looked at the CMO and she was awesome and had a great life, but I didn't want to be her. And I didn't want to be my boss. And I didn't want to be, like, I couldn't even imagine my growth within the fashion industry. It just wasn't, like, I couldn't fast forward 5 years and see myself there. And I thought, what a shame. Like, all of my friends, what we do is we come home and we bitch about our jobs. We bitch about how, unhappy we are or how itchy we are or how unsatisfied we are, yet we're not taking action together to make a change. Nor are we sitting down and saying, hey, let me show you how to make a podcast or like, let me show you how to make a website, or we're not learning from one another. We're just kind of complaining collectively. And I thought that was a bummer because we all know so many people and we could probably be stronger if we came together. And so that's why I was like, let me create this like experience for people where people can come and I can learn what you do and you can learn, which you guys beat me to it. This is awesome. Get a day in the life of the person. Actually, this is exactly what I was doing. I wanted to get a day in the life. What's it like to be a coder? What's it like to be a CNN assistant? What's it like? And we had over 45 people sign up. I was like, shit, they won't fit in my apartment. Like, this isn't going to work. This is getting out of hand. So I casually mentioned it to one of the people I'd met through my life and networking that I wanted to do this. And she worked at the Chester. And she's like, you know what? Let's do $25, 2 drinks and appetizers for everyone. And I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad having people pay. This is horrible. This is supposed to be free, but okay, let's do this. So my mom was literally collecting cash, at the beginning. But it was so cool because the night before I realized I don't want to hear 45 people's stories. I don't want to go around being like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? I thought, what if I tailored it for each person where they could hear 4 people's stories, so they could meet 4 people that made sense to them or that need that they needed, that itch they wanted scratched. Yeah. So I curated the matches the night before, the big bottle of wine till 2 a.m. and it was so cool. It was so freaking cool just seeing like the energy and the excitement and just like the connections being built. And after the event ended, several people came up to me and they're like, when's your next event? I have some girlfriends I want to bring. And I was like, oh, no.
This is an experiment.
This is a human experiment. And this is my one and done thing. I just wanted to help us all because I'm feeling this way. I assume other people are. And so I started doing once a month, like a different theme or adding the panel elements and playing with the different times of the matches. Is it 20 minutes? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 15? What's the perfect amount of time to connect with someone where you could networking foreplay, like decide if you want to go further with them or not. And then, fast forward, a girl asked if I wanted to take the name of her Facebook group, which was called City Society, and we kind of joined forces, but I was essentially running forward. She had other priorities in her life, and I fell in love with my business.
So Why is it called 6 Degree Society? That's the big question.
Well, so there's a few 6 degrees references. There's 6 degrees of separation, the theory that we're all connected by 6 degrees of people, which is true. If you look on Facebook, you usually are like a third connection to someone. I should have called it 2nd degree society or 3rd degree society, but didn't have that ring to it. And for me, I was at a friend's house, and she's actually a great person to know. Her name's Jamie Mechanics, and created the Preppery, and she helps people with interviews and transitioning careers. And I had referred her to someone, and she was on a phone call with her in the other room, and she was like, the 7 degrees of Emily Merrell. I was like, I think it's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, actually, but let me play with this, because I was looking to change the name. It had been called City Society before, but really wanted, once I started this as a real business, wanted a real name. And I was like, 6 degrees collective, 6 degrees group, 6 degrees society, 6 degrees society. And I bought the domain. I checked the Instagram handle, I checked the hashtags, and did it all within 25 minutes.
So all of this was happening while she was still working full-time at Tory Burch. But she was working so hard and her time was pretty divided, she started to feel like she was resenting both. So she decided to quit her full-time job and pursue 6 Degree Society full-time. But while she was doing that, she took a job at Intermix in events to supplement some income.
And I needed to pick one to focus on, because I either had to get rid of City Society and really focus on my job, or I needed to focus on City Society and not focus on my job. And I loved the version of who I was when I was creating these events. I loved me. I loved the way I felt. I felt high of life, like full of nourishment by the outside forces. And in fashion, I felt depleted. I felt like I was making rich people buy expensive stuff. And it didn't bring me joy the way that I wanted to feel every day. I wanted to light up like a Christmas tree, and I wasn't doing that. And so I went to my 10-year high school reunion, and I practiced saying both out loud to people, and I realized, like, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to quit on Monday. Oh. And it was, guys, don't do it. It's stupid the way I did it. But I'm so grateful that I did, because it put so much fire in my belly to make this work. Mm-hmm. If I had just quit and then this had floundered and sunk, I would have been devastated. So I really, really wanted to prove not only to outside forces, but also to myself that this is like a viable product and a viable company.
If you want to learn more about how you can attend a 6 Degree Society event, head over to the show notes page for this series at experienceadiddle.com or visit 6degreesociety.com for more information.
That wraps up part 2 in the Nurture Your Network series. Huge thanks to Emily Merrell for sharing her wisdom throughout this Experience a Diddle series. If you haven't already, be sure to listen to part 1 to experience a day in the life of a networking organization founder and events entrepreneur.
Do you need experience? Are you looking for an internship? Well, you can join the team and interview anyone in any industry by becoming an Experience a Diddle student interviewer. Regardless of your major or amount of experience, this is the perfect stepping stone into any internship or career. Apply to the Adiddle Army at experienceadiddle.com/students. That's experienceadiddle.com/students. Thanks for listening. To find the show notes with all relevant links and photos for this series, head over to experienceadiddle.com. That's experienceadiddle.com.
If you learned something in this episode, please take some time to help our mission by leaving a positive rating and review of the show. Each week, we bring you a new interview series with guests from different jobs and industries. So, don't forget to subscribe.